The rich get richer in Philadelphia. The Eagles are reportedly acquiring Jaguars running back Tank Bigsby in exchange for a 5th and 6th round draft pick. Bigsby only had 5 carries for 12 yards in the season opener against the Panthers. He led the Jaguars in rushing in the 2024 season, and now he has a new home in the city of brotherly love. Let's dive into the news from a fantasy perspective and welcome in our fantasy expert, 2-time fantasy analyst of the year, Jamey Eisenberg. Jamey, the Eagles add to one of the best backfields in the NFL, led by Saquon Barkley. Now behind him, we've seen glimpses from Will Shipley and A.J. Dillon, and now they add the leading rusher from the Jaguars last season. What does this move mean for Tank Bigsby?
Well, it takes him from a potential starter, because he could have still earned that job in Jacksonville, Madeline, to now he's definitely going to be a backup. He's going to certainly have a role with Philadelphia. I don't think they make this move to just make him simply a backup, break glass in case of emergency type of player. But he's not going to have the opportunity, like you said, to potentially lead the team in rushing like he did in Jacksonville last year, and still could have this year as well, because even though Travis Etienne got off to a great start in week 1, there were still some questions about who would be the leading rusher in Jacksonville moving forward. But I think for Bigsby by himself, for fantasy managers, now you know who to target just in case something does happen to Saquon Barkley. Now, unfortunately, he's going to be on a lot of people's rosters. He may get dropped over the next few days as waivers run, because you might have to make some moves looking for the hope that Bigsby was going to become something Jacksonville, to moving on to finding someone who could help your roster in a different way. But based on what happened to Saquon Barkley last year, the fact that he had all that work just in case something does happen in case of an injury, this guy's got a chance to be a superstar, because we know the Eagles' offensive line is fantastic. He's never going to be Saquon Barkley. Don't ever put that on the poor kid, for him to become that type of player just yet. But he certainly would be a top 20 caliber fantasy running back if Barkley ever missed any time. So when we talk about handcuffs and lottery tickets, Tank Bigsby now falls into that category, but he's not going to be someone you can rely on a week-to-week basis.
Right, and as you mentioned too, Will Shipley, he's dealing with some injury right now. Tank Bigsby goes from a potential RB1 in Jacksonville to a handcuff. You want to roster the handcuff behind Saquon Barkley if fantasy managers have Saquon behind that dominant offensive line. So does he become the top running back to roster if you have Saquon? Are you suggesting that, hey, Saquon owners go out and claim Bigsby on waivers?
Yeah, unfortunately, he's not on waivers, but you certainly could try to get him via trade. So any way you could try to acquire him, that's certainly a smart move. We look at these backfields that have just the potential of the next man up. Certainly, as we've seen in San Francisco the last couple of years, Christian McCaffrey goes down, it's Jordan Mason, it's Isaac Guerrero. If you can find a way to get Tank Bigsby, listen, we don't want to see Saquon miss any time. Hopefully, he's going to be healthy. Got off to a great start in week 1 against the Cowboys, and should be all systems go. But we know injuries happen. He's a 28-year-old running back coming off a lot of work. So if you can acquire Bigsby, it's a smart move to make. But obviously, at the same time, you don't want to shake up your roster too much. So I think you'll see a lot of fantasy managers that roster Bigsby right now, probably dropping him at some point, maybe not this week, but over the next several weeks, and you can just pick him up off waivers. I wouldn't make a huge trade to go get Tank Bigsby.
All right. Now, the Jaguars did get a couple of draft picks in the deal, but over in Duval County, Liam Cohen and the Jaguars came into this season preaching a running back by committee. So week 1 saw the exact opposite. Travis Etienne put up his best fantasy day since week 17 of the 2023 season. He led the Jags with touches with 16 carries and 3 receptions as well. So where does this move put Etienne moving forward?
He's a top 20 running back heading into week 2. We'll kind of just take it on a week-to-week basis, but this is great news for him, with the fact that Bigsby could have been the most legitimate threat to him early in the season. I do love the setup now for Bhayshul Tuten, their rookie running back. This could be the guy that eventually takes over, if not just in a tandem situation and taking that Tank Bigsby role, maybe pushing Etienne to the side as the season goes on. But at least for the time being, Travis Etienne's a huge winner right now. Like you said, coming off a 143-yard day, 3 catches, dominating playing time, 61% of the snaps, and really the other 3 guys sort of chopping it up a little bit between Bigsby, Bhayshul Tuten, and LaQuint James, another guy that's going to be a factor at some point this season as well. But I think just for right now, going into week 2 against the Cincinnati Bengals, we just saw Dylan Sampson have a nice day catching the ball in the backfield. Certainly Etienne's proven he can do that. You mentioned the 2023 season. He was a fantasy star that year, averaged 16.7 PPR points per game. That number got cut in half in 2024. Everybody was looking at him as a huge bust going into this year. He went from a round 2 pick in 2024 to a round 8 pick in 2025. So you're going to get tremendous value for that player right now for as long as he's the guy. But I do think if Bhayshul Tuten's out there on waivers, if you can find a way to acquire him, if somebody drops him after this week because he didn't do very much, this is the guy you want to stash. So if we're talking about just, having Tank Bigsby on your roster or having Bhayshul Tuten on your roster, I would prefer Tuten because I think at some point we may see Liam Cohen turn to the guy that he actually invested in. Remember, he inherited Travis Etienne. He inherited Tank Bigsby. He drafted this guy in Tuten. He drafted James. So this could be the player that we look at as maybe the guy taking over at some point as the season goes on. But for right now, Travis Etienne, week 2, top 20 running back.
Right, well, because Liam Cohen did say he wanted to have a running back by committee. We didn't see that, but is Tuten really a stash guy, or is he really a value worth taking a look at for Jacksonville?
Oh, I think he's definitely a stash guy. There's going to be a time. First off, they're not going to give Travis Etienne, like you said, he wants a running back by committee. He's not going to give him 20-plus touches on a week-to-week basis unless he just continues to do this, and it's too hard to put him on the bench. But I do think they want to see Tuten, start to take on a little bit larger workload as the season goes on. He's got to get better in pass protection. That's a big part of this. And I think they also like James, again, another rookie that showed some good things in the passing game in the preseason, that they want to get him some touches as well. So this frees up the 2 rookies to get a lot of work. Again, Tuten's the one you want to focus on, but at least in the short term, Travis Etienne just such a big winner here because he doesn't have the threat of what Bigsby was last year when he had more carries and more rushing yards than him as the season went on.
Jamey Eisenberg, thanks so much for the fantasy insight as always.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Now, our resident Jaguars expert, Pete Prisco, weighs in on the move. He believes in the Jaguars running back by committee approach like we saw the Bucs bring last season. The Jaguars will travel to Cincinnati Sunday at 1 Eastern on CBS.